Good morning, Britain. I mean, Churchill. I think it's Thursday. It's definitely Thursday. Good. Um, Excellent. So, we're going to start our Thursday morning by looking at some new vocabulary. It's vocabulary from our book that we started yesterday, so Floodland. I'm really excited about that. Just to begin with, the meaning of the word Zoe in Greek means life, real, or genuine. So always have a little think about why authors choose certain names for their characters. So I wonder how Zoe's character is going to develop through our book. And also the name of her boat, Leica, means purity or light. So I wonder why he chose that name for the boat. There must be a reason. We'll see if we can find out. Okay, so to begin with, we're going to look at our SPAG. Today you can either print it off, you could write it in your book as it is, so copy it from the video. What I'd like you to do, I'd like you to read the words and then match them to their definition or meaning. Now you might need a dictionary to do this, or you could go online and find out the meaning of those words, or you might ask an adult or somebody else who's in your household. So let's read the words first. The first one we've got is abandoned, then we have rut, we've got sodden, we've got tussock, we've got hunch, and we've got abandon. Okay, so similar to abandoned, we've got abandon. Now the meaning to those words are here, but they are not in the right order. So what I'd like you to do, think about your presentation, is draw a line using a ruler and a pencil to the meaning of the correct meaning, to the word. So we've done this before in class, so you should know what to do. So pause the video, have a go at that, and then we'll see if you were correct. Okay, good. You should have had a go at doing that. So let's just have a look at the answers, what we found out. So abandoned means to leave permanently. So to leave something and never to go back. Okay, rut is a deep track. So when Zoe dragged Leica across the wet grass or earth, it left a rut in the ground. So it's a deep track. Let's have a look. Our next one is sodden, which means soaked through. So it's a really good adjective to use to describe something that's soaking wet. Tussock, one of my favourite words. Okay, a tussock is a clump of or tuft of grass. So when you go for a walk, sometimes in the fields, you will see just these little kind of clumps of grass. You can trip over them actually. So that is a tussock. And then hunch is going to be to bend the top of one's shoulders forwards. So if you're hunched over something, hunched over a desk, hunched over when you're rowing, describing your shoulders moving forward. And the last one, abandon, means something that is wild or uncontrolled. So I wonder in our passage what we could use that word abandon for. I wonder what was wild and uncontrolled. Okay, so good. We're going to move on. Yesterday we read the first chapter. We had a bit of a discussion about what was going on. Hopefully you've got a good idea of that and you used your 5 W's to make some notes about Zoe and what had happened in that first chapter. So today we're going to focus on something in a little bit more detail. Let's check it out. Today what we're going to do, we're going to plan our extended description of Zoe as she entered the graveyard. And if we were to add more detail to this paragraph, how would you describe her? Okay, and the setting. So Marcus Sedgwick, when he wrote this passage, he didn't spend too long describing the graveyard or what was really going on. So I thought it would be a good idea to kind of explode this scene in the book, and it will allow us to kind of create our own description of this moment in Zoe's life. Okay, so we're going to read it again, just that chapter, and then we can just think of some ideas that would allow us to kind of extend this description of the graveyard. Okay, so we've discussed kind of Zoe's character and how she's feeling, and she's got to this point where she has just jumped over the wall. Okay, we're going to reread the passage. Remember, she ran down towards the boat shed, okay, the small brick boat shed, to find Leica. Now when we do this, you can make notes. I'm just going to read the passage through, the paragraph through, and I want you to kind of build in your picture a sort of pathway, almost like a map of where Zoe starts and where she ends up. Okay, so I'm going to read from the book. You can just listen. The sound of running feet came closer. Another 2 seconds and they would be round the corner. She got up and practically threw herself over a wall. She landed awkwardly, but she'd won a little more time. She was in a graveyard. It led away down a hill to where a small brick shed stood near the water's edge. Once it had contained all the equipment for looking after the graveyard, but now it contained Zoe's boat. The previous night she had rowed around from the warehouse where she had found the boat and fixed it. The old building had been unsafe when she'd discovered it and had been getting worse. She had decided to find a new place to keep her boat, and the shed seemed ideal. In the dark, she had dragged the boat the short distance from the water to the shed. It had been very hard work. At night, she hadn't noticed the deep ruts the boat's keel had made in the sodden grass. In daylight, even in her mad rush, they were obvious. She would be lucky if no one had already found it. Leica! Zoe panted as she opened the shed door. Please be here, Leica. It was all right. The boat was still there, waiting for her. Pulling it across the grass and then into the water, she dared to look behind her for the first time. Her stomach twisted with fear. The gang was storming down the hill, weaving in and out of the crumbling gravestones. Zoe moved faster. She clambered aboard and put the oars out, then started to pull. They were at the water now, and though 1 or 2 stopped, the rest came splashing madly after her. Okay, so again, a very kind of tense moment in the book, and we're going to really focus on sort of describing that setting and how Zoe is feeling. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to make some notes. You can rewind the video, go back, listen to that extract again, but on our next slide, this is kind of the pathway that Zoe took. So this is what we want to include in our planning, ready for writing tomorrow. So the action starts when she practically threw herself over the wall that surrounded the graveyard. So we could do a good description of that wall and how she landed, how she felt, and then moving on, you want to really describe the graveyard and the church in more detail. Now, Marcus Sedgwick hardly does any description of the graveyard and the church, so this is going to be a key focus for us. Okay, so then moving on, she makes her way through that graveyard, down the hill towards the water's edge to the small brick shed. And again, this is another ideal opportunity for you to expand your descriptive writing. Finally, she makes it to the seashore. So we want to know how she felt as she entered the water. Was the sea rough? Was it calm? What time of day is it when she's doing this? So these are all factors that you can think about and put on your plan this morning. Okay. Right, so we're going to take a look at some images. Now, these are photographs that I took at my graveyard. So I went to go and have a little look and get a feel of what it was like walking around my graveyard and really kind of using my senses. Now, it was sunny when I took these photos. I think these are really good examples where you can sort of see how the sun kind of hits the gravestones, the shadows, and really how the graveyard is kind of very random, and it's almost like the gravestones are scattered about the ground. So there's no real order in this graveyard. Okay, so think of Zoe kind of tearing through here. What might the obstacles be? What does she see? Now, she might take a glance and look at a single lone figure. And you might describe a statue like this. This statue is praying. Now, this might be a metaphor for how Zoe is feeling at the time. So you could describe a statue. She noticed out of the corner of her eye a figure. It could be an angel praying to God. She's praying that she will escape. Okay, so having a look at some more images, the pictures that I took, noticing sort of shapes. There's some very distinctive shapes. You've got the church itself standing there, so a good description of the church with its spire and its old stonework. In this picture, again, thinking about how we could represent a sense of her fear, it looks like a fox has probably got some poor old bird here. It could be, again, something that she notices, and again, it's almost like the crowd that are chasing her could tear her apart. So you can put in small descriptions like that to make your writing interesting and kind of full of suspense and conveying that fear that Zoe is feeling. Okay, let's have a look at some more. So looking at similar kind of shapes here, how does dark and light create a mood? Okay, so the things that I noticed, I thought this gravestone, I noticed the moss, which gives it a really kind of nice, you can see it's like a really old gravestone. So moss clinging onto the stone for dear life. The actual marking on the gravestone itself, or on the headstone, almost looks kind of ghost-like, like there's a ghost coming through. And then in the middle picture here, I walked along the path, and the trees had created a sort of tunnel, a really dark tunnel, with light at the end of the tunnel. So this might represent hope. So you could say that Zoe was running through this tunnel of trees. They seem to be grabbing at her. She might trip on some roots or something like that. So think about how you could create maybe a claustrophobic feel in your description. The image at the end, I really like this window. From the outside, it just looks lifeless. This is a stained glass window, but there is no colour. You can't see the colour, so it's kind of like a dead window. It's kind of like really eerie. So again, something that she might notice as she's running through the graveyard. Okay, these are all ideas that you might include in your description. So I think this final slides. Again, how can an object become a metaphor? So just looking at this photograph, we've got a single red flower. What does the colour red represent? You can have a discussion about all of these photographs in detail and jot your ideas down. So what might that flower represent? And on the second photograph, is there anything that she sees that reminds her of the past? So you want to think about her family background, and she's lost her parents. We don't know exactly what has happened to them, but with this photograph she might see something like this and it might remind her of her parents for a moment. Okay, so all of those photographs, you'll be able to have a look back, and you can include those in your plan if you like. It's up to you. So you can use those images taken from the church and graveyard to help you with your detail and description. You can go online if you're at home and have a look at other kind of examples of graveyards. Remember, you don't need to overload your reader, so you can edit ideas before you write tomorrow. So get as many kind of ideas down on your plan, but remember, you don't need to use all of them. Marcus Sedgwick often said you just focus on good vocabulary. Don't create a boring description. Okay, so these are some of the things that I would focus on. Description of the wall, the sky, what's the weather like? Okay, the ground, so the words like tussocks that we used and sodden, you can magpie and use them in your own writing. Okay, the graves, the shed, and whether that's falling down. Okay, a small brick shed. The church, really important as well. It's a good description of that church. What does it represent? And the sea, so finally as she gets down to the sea, and then really you need to think and try and get across Zoe's emotions, because I think we could sort of say this is a bit of an emotional roller coaster ride for her as she's tearing through this graveyard. So there'll be many things flashing through her head, so her emotions change. Okay, so really think about that. Have a think. How is she feeling at the beginning? How does she feel towards the end as she kind of reaches the safety of her boat as she's rowing out to sea? Okay, so try and think about those emotions. You could make a list before you start. So You must make a plan for descriptive writing. You should use the fantastics or senses to structure your ideas like we did last week. You could use that newly learnt vocabulary. So from our SPAG starter this week, there's some really good words that you could choose. You might include time conjunctions as sentence openers as well. So words like after a while, soon, suddenly, next, okay, the favourite, in the blink of an eye. So those time conjunctions will make your openers really interesting. You don't always need to use a time conjunction, so we have talked in the past about opening sentences by using an adverb, so anxiously, cautiously, okay. So you can plan however you like. I would suggest using the planning frame on the resources, and you can add to that, so you can do your own sketches if you want to include kind of focus points. So draw a sketch of a statue or a tunnel of trees, something like that, the tussocks, anything that will help you with your extended write tomorrow. Okay, so I can say good luck with that one. It's quite an open task for you today, but again, use the fantastics, make notes, and choose your vocabulary wisely. Okay, your planning is so important, will really help you with tomorrow's task. Okay, good. So I hope you enjoyed that. You can rewind the video, gather your ideas for your plan, and I'm going to say goodbye, and we'll see you tomorrow on Friday. Cheerio.